Hey, what's up? Happy 4th of July, everybody. Thought I'd put together a rant video here on the 4th of July, Independence Day holiday. I know a lot of you are probably getting ready to start grilling out with your friends and family. You're having a few beers. Maybe you're getting ready to celebrate the independence of your country by blowing up a small part of it with some illegal fireworks. I know that's what I usually do. Me, myself, I'm going to head to the gym and get my workout on. Then I'm going to get ready to grill and have some drinks and blow some shit up. That's how I do on my 4th of July. So I wanted to put together a rant video so you'd have something to listen to, something to pregame to for you boxing diehards who just can't get enough of the boxing news. Wanted to talk about this. Oh, before I get started, I just wanted to express some gratitude on this holiday and say thank you to all of you who support what I'm doing here on YouTube. You support the Neutral Corner podcast. You support my work on In Ring Magazine, Boxing Monthly Magazine, UCN Live, some of the radio work I've done on NBC Sports Radio on the Paul Smith Show. Whether you're contributing on Patreon or buying a shirt and repping the MOB name and getting that out there to people, or just consuming my work and commenting and reading and sharing and subscribing. Guys, thank you so much. I don't express gratitude enough, and I don't know what it is. On holidays, I just reflect and I look back at all the things that are going on in my life, good, bad, and in between, and I just wanted to express that gratitude before going forward. So thank you so much to all you guys who support what I'm trying to do in this business. Anyway, wanted to talk about this WBC purse bid as it relates to Adonis Stevenson, the light heavyweight titleist, and his mandatory challenger, Oleksandr Gvozdyk. A few of you guys have asked me about this. So, real quick, the way these purse bids work, they're a little different between different sanctioning organizations, and I can get into all the differences. They're very similar, but there are differences as far as the rules, the stipulations, just some of the protocol that each organization has for their purse bid process, and even the percentage splits, which could change given different circumstances. I could go into all that for like an hour, guys. Those rules are posted on their website, so go check that out. But with the BC, the fighter with the title is going to get 65% of that purse split, and the challenger, whether they have an interim title or they're in this situation it's a mandatory, they're going to get 35%. Now, again, with different organizations, if somebody has an interim title or it's a situation like there's diamond titles and silver titles and all this crap, the percentage splits can change. But in this situation, it's going to be 65 to Stevenson, 35 to Gvozdyk. Anybody can bid, whether you represent the fighters or not. As far as I understand it with the BC, anybody can bid. And the winning bidder is whoever puts up the most money. However, you put in your deposit, all the financials have to check out, whatever. You have up to 10 days if you win to withdraw. If you do withdraw, then whoever was number 2, now they're the winner. And that's the way this thing works, okay, basically. So this week, Phil Weiss, who is working on behalf of Tom Brown, who has TGB Promotions, who is a shadow promoter that works with Al Heyman. Al Heyman has several shadow promoters that work with him to promote PBC events, and TGB is one of them. They work primarily out on the West Coast, but Phil Weiss was working on their behalf and put up a little over $3 million. Adonis Stevenson's promoter, Yvonne Michelle, put up a little over $2 million, and Gvozdyk's promoter, Top Rank, put up $1.6 million. So, Phil Weiss wins the purse bid, over $3 million. Now, if you're Top Rank, you're not mad at that, because Top Rank has said all along they know that this fight's probably going to go to Canada, and they're willing to go there. They're also willing to fight on Showtime if that works out. If Showtime doesn't work out, they'd work something out for ESPN. But you put up 1.6, this dude put up almost twice that. That means almost twice as much for your fighter as you were willing to pay them. So for Top Rank, they didn't mind this $3 million purse bid win for Phil Weiss. Here's the thing. After winning, he immediately withdrew his bid. Immediately. Because once all the bids are put in, there's an envelope and everything's collected and they read them all off. they announced the top bids. So they knew right away that Top Rank came in third. Yvonne Michelle, who represents Stevenson, who is managed or advised by Heyman, who is working in association with TGB Promotions, who is represented by Phil Weiss at the purse bid. A lot of chains here, but you see how everything connects. When they saw that the number 2 bid was Michelle, which is basically their side, of course they pulled out their $3 million bid because like, oh, we get this thing for $1 million cheaper. We know it wasn't worth $3 million anyway. We were willing to pay that. We were willing to overpay, as Heyman very often does in these situations to have control. But we get this for $1 million cheaper. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and withdraw this bid. So basically, Top Rank went to the WBC and said, look, man, it's pretty obvious what happened here. Weiss and Michelle colluded together. They both put up bids. And once they found out that they both beat us out, they withdrew their highest bid so they could get the fight a little cheaper, but still have control of it. This is bullshit. The WBC apparently is going to, quote unquote, look into it. The WBC official that was there presiding over the purse bid reported this to, he was unhappy with the process as well, and he reported this to Mauricio Suleiman, and Suleiman says that later this week, I believe Thursday, he said he's going to make a ruling. Who knows if it'll happen that quickly. It might go to next week. But he said that they're going to make a ruling. Now, under the WBC rules, if they are not happy with the way this thing went down, and they feel there was collusion or some sort of unethical thing happening, they could cancel this purse bid and demand a second purse bid. And they'd set a new date, and they'd say, you guys have until this date to come up with an agreement or, you know, a contract amongst yourselves for this fight, or boom, we're doing another purse bid. So this thing could get delayed even further, this fight. And if you look at the way things have gone with Adonis Stevenson the past 4 or 5 years, this guy has been so protected, and he had a mandatory forever that he never fought. So you know, you would think it's very, very possible this could get kicked down the road a little further, because that seems to be the way things have worked with Stevenson. However, with Top Rank, look, Stevenson's mandatories before, they did not have good people representing them that had their best interest at heart. Now Stevenson has a mandatory represented by Top Rank, one of the premier, if not the premier promoter in boxing on earth. And I say that because they've been around so long and they've been so successful, and they continue to do innovative things thinking forward with the types of markets they delve into, and in terms of the fighters they represent, and the platforms that they make deals with. You see what they're doing right now with ESPN in the ESPN Plus app. So there's no way Stevenson and his people are going to be able to protect him against Gvozdyk. They're going to have to take that fight or dump that title. So we'll see what happens there. But it appears Stevenson and his people want the fight. Does this thing get delayed now? Do we have to wait for a second purse bid, or can this be worked out? A few of you guys have asked, why does Top Rank care? They came in third anyway. So it's not like they were going to win the purse bid. They were never going to have control of this fight. That's not their position. Bob Arum has said all along that this fight's probably going to Canada, probably going to Showtime, and they're more than willing to do that. Apparently right now the leading candidate is Quebec City for the location for the fight. They're totally cool with that. Of course, Showtime will probably have the fight. If Showtime doesn't want to pay for the fight and it doesn't work out, Arum said they're totally cool working it out for ESPN. That's not the issue here. The issue here is they're getting 35% of the purse bid. Well, if you're representing a fighter and you're getting a cut of that, but more than that, you're representing a fighter and trying to get him paid the most, you want 35% of $3 million more than 35% of $2 million. 35% of $3 million would be a little over $1 million. 35% of $2 million is about $700,000. So that's more than $300,000 extra for your fighter potentially if he wins the fight and gets that share of the purse, right? 700 grand gets a title, or I'm sorry, $1 million versus 700 grand. He gets the title if he wins. He gets that portion of the purse, and he moves forward. And now you're in a better position, and you got $300,000 more for your athlete. So of course, that's why Top Rank is pissed off about this. Aram said, and this is an actual quote here, and I tend to agree with him, the WBC should make every promoter put up 10% of their purse bid, and if they default, then that money should go to the fighters in proportion to the purse split. I like that rule. That's how you prevent this kind of stuff from happening. Look, is Phil Weiss and Tom Brown and Yvonne Michelle, are they the first people to do something like this? Hell no. This happens all the time. Will they be the last people to try it? No. This is a way for a side to protect their interest. It's just the nature in which this was done that is just one example of many, many examples I could give you guys as to why people are frustrated and don't like the way Al Haymon does business. Now, I have no horse in this race. I don't choose one promoter over another as far as who I like or who I want to write about, whose fighters. I mean, I just did a piece in Boxing Monthly magazine about Errol Spence, a PBC fighter, right? So I'm doing a piece right now on Canelo Golovkin for Boxing Monthly, and of course those fighters are with other promoters. So, and then I did a piece with Nico Hernandez for Ring Magazine, an American flyweight who is not with any powerful promoters, with a small regional promoter. So I treat everybody equally, guys, but not everybody acts equally. Now, all promoters talk shit and say bullshit, and you know what comes out of their mouth is not always what they really mean. And those of you who watch my videos and stuff and read my stuff, you guys know that I talk about that all the time, and it's fair game with all the promoters. But some of the ways Al Haymon does business, again, acting like a promoter when you're really not, sending a representative of a representative through these shadow, connections that you have to go behave in this way at a purse bid. It just annoys people, and it's just, again, one of a billion things I could point to. And I just mentioned Errol Spence, so to do that interview, to get that interview with him and his trainer Derek James, to get in contact with those guys and set all that up. Now they're in Dallas, I'm in Atlanta now, but when I set all this up, I was in Los Angeles. I couldn't just roll over to the gym and talk to those guys. And even if I could, I wouldn't do that because that's not the professional way you're supposed to set up interviews and everything. So I tried to go through channels that I knew, but it was hard to locate a promoter for Errol Spence. You have to basically go through Haymon's guy, Tim Smith, who's not the most responsive. It took over a month to narrow down and lock down the right channels to finally get set up for a phone interview with Errol Spence and his trainer. And I talked to those guys directly while they were working out at the gym, just over the phone, on speakerphone. And that's how I set up my interview for Boxing Monthly. Going through that process is so convoluted, it's so confusing, it's almost a deterrent for mainstream media outlets to get through to those guys and to do stories on them because you don't know who to call. You don't always know who to call. Now, once you establish, now I can just call Derek James. I can call him or text him and ask him a question because I've established that contact. But I had to jump through so many hoops to establish that contact. And it's just not like that with other promoters, guys. You want to talk to one of Golden Boy's people? Very quick to respond. You want to talk to one of Top Rank's people? Very, very easy. Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, very easy. But because PBC is so convoluted and there's no one entity, or it's not even that there needs to be one promoter or one advisor. It's if there was a streamlined media process, even if you could go through their site, some way where you knew exactly the channel to go through to get a hold of their guys, it'd be much easier for guys like me to do my job. Here's another example. TGB Promotions, who I just talked about. I believe now, and I don't even know this 100% for sure yet, but I believe they're the ones, the shadow promoter doing the Mikey Garcia, Robert Easter fight in LA later this month, which I want to cover. I'm going to be out there in LA working on some stuff, and I want to be there and cover that fight. I think that's a really, really great fight with a lot of implications for big future fights down the line. So I want to be there. Well, up until last week, there was no media credential application form anywhere to be seen. Now, sometimes there are third-party sites, actually oftentimes, who handle the credential process, third-party companies, and there's one very, very popular site that has most of the big fights. You could go through there. I went there, nothing. So I reached out to several promoters I know who I am, who I have a good relationship with, who work with Al Haymon, and they had no answers. And they, sent me to this person and to that person, and I was just going around in circles, and I couldn't get any answers. I emailed Ringstar, I talked to TGB, got nothing. I talked to Swanson and their people, I got nothing. I even reached out to Tim Smith, got nothing. And these are all people that I've done business with before and talked to and covered their events. Finally, this week, it's posted on that website, which is Magna Media, which handles most of the big events. Finally up there, it's posted so I can submit my credential application. Guys, it's the month of the fight. It's less than a month away from the fight, and you're just now posting your media credential application. And it's a holiday week. So they're going to get a ton of people putting in for that card this week and next week, and then they'll cut it, they'll review, they'll pick who they're going to pick, and they'll send out confirmations and all that stuff. But that process that most promoters take several months to put together, they're truncating that into a couple of weeks. So the whole media experience is going to be very haphazard, disorganized, and all over the place. And that's been my experience with multiple PBC events that I've covered. So that's just another example, just giving you guys another example of why people get frustrated and aggravated and annoyed with the way that whole thing works. The only thing you know consistently right now with PBC is that it's going to be on Showtime. 90% of the time, it's going to be on Showtime. But as far as, from a media perspective, or if you're another promoter trying to get a hold of people and trying to organize something for a fight, for a card, it's very, very difficult and convoluted. So anyway, wanted to put that out there. And as it relates to this purse bid situation, yes, I do think, it's pretty obvious that Phil Weiss and through TGB Promotions and Yvonne Michelle, and this is all probably under the directive, I'm not saying Al Haymon himself, but people who work with Al Haymon, perhaps it was Tim Smith or those guys, all kind of said, okay, here's our strategy. And it worked out the way it worked out. And per the rules of the BC, they could legally do what they did. Now the BC might decide that they want to have a second purse bid. I don't know if they will though. Maybe they'll just move forward with this because this is probably a $2 million fight. That's what was put up, and they can all move forward. But I do like Aram's idea. If these sanctioning organizations refuse to, if you withdraw your bid, you don't get your deposit back. And if these sanctioning organizations made that rule in these purse bid processes, and maybe they took any money collected in those situations, as Aram suggests, and just give it to the two fighters. Add it to their purse as a bonus. Be like, hey, this fighter or this promotional outfit pulled out. They put down $300,000. You guys are going to get this bonus come fight night, and leave it at that. I think that that's very, very fair, and it would be a deterrent for other promoters, advisors, shadow promoters, whoever, to do stuff like this in the future. But in the end, I still like this fight a lot. And based on, look, neither fighter looked good in their most recent contest. But I think they were perhaps, in the case of Gvozdyk, fighting down to the level of his opposition. And I think for Stevenson, he was having it all his way early on. Badu Jack was giving him absolutely nothing to think about in the early rounds. So he was having it his way as well. Perhaps they were fighting down to the level of their opposition. It comes down to who you think could rise to the occasion more in this matchup. Stevenson, of course, southpaw, good power with that straight left, right? Gvozdyk has been down before. So has Stevenson, but Gvozdyk has been down before, especially early in fights. If the nail, Oleksandr Gvozdyk, can handle Stevenson's power early on in that fight and continue to use his angles, his very, very sharp boxing. He's very, very sharp with his angles and what he does. Not the most fluid guy on earth, not the most athletic, but more fluid and athletic than most, especially in that division. And he uses angles and spacing very well. If the southpaw angles don't give him trouble and the straight left hand from Stevenson doesn't give him trouble, and he can get past the first few rounds, because I do think Stevenson will come out there and try to blast him a few times and get respect, the later that fight goes, the more like Gvozdyk. And he could possibly, if he really starts touching up Stevenson, especially if he goes to the body, I really think he could get him out of there. If he can, later in that fight, bust up Stevenson a little bit, and instead of punching straight at him here, punch at him from over here and over here. Get off to the side, get your angle over here, and then start landing shots over here on the side of Stevenson's head. I think he could get him out of there. But my early prediction for that fight is Oleksandr Gvozdyk, the nail, wins by decision in Canada. And I don't know if he's going to get this extra $300,000 or not, but it won't really matter. If he gets the title, he can move forward from there. I just hope that regardless of who wins this fight, they unify. This division needs to be unified. So even if Stevenson pulls it off and wins this fight, it's probably the best win of his career, because, you know, people point to Chad Dawson, but he was coming off a knockout loss. He had even been knocked out in sparring multiple times before his fight with Stevenson. So I'd really rate that. This would be Stevenson's best win, the best win of his career. If he takes this win, I hope he does something with it and unifies. That's what I want to see in this division. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think. If you have any more questions in the comments section, I'll try to get to them. Have a happy, safe, fun 4th of July. Check out the Neutral Corner next week. I'll see you at the fights. By the way, I'll be in New Orleans next weekend for that Regis Prograis fight on ESPN. He just entered the World Boxing Super Series if he wins the fight next Saturday, which I will. So any of you guys in the New Orleans area who are going to that card, get at me. Let's have some drinks and talk boxing.